Hi and welcome to episode 3 of Watch Me Code. This one should hopefully be relatively short. So let's just start by recapping where we are. So I'm just going to just fire up the test instance that we had before. And explain where we're at and what we want to do. So the fundamental thing that we have so far from last time is we got it to the point where it was actually discovering repositories, and as they were discovered, it would then go and if we triggered an indexing of the organization, it would go and find the organization's repositories. Now, what we really like is we'd like the situation where we don't even need to trigger. We like Jenkins to just create the repository as soon as it's available. So for that to work, we have to integrate with the event subsystem. So SEM API and Multibranch projects provide an event system. So if we look currently, you'll see we have these organization folders, and we've organization folder. So we've got the scan organization folder log, which is kind of every time you do a scan, it gives you that. And then we've got this organization folder events, and you'll say this is saying no events. Now, what's that about? Well, if we go over to Maven, and we look at this guy, we can see we've multi-branch events, no events, and we've the scan multi-branch pipeline log. Now, the plugin we're working in is one which is wired up to handle what's known as ASF pub sub. So if I go to create a new tab, right, Apache Maven, right, so let's see, right, oh yes, update IP. I actually have a change that I have to do. So let's just commit that and git push. Now, what we should see is if everything's working correctly, and this is live, so here we go. So you see we've got this git pub sub poll push updated event, which has triggered it in, and it's met the criteria, and so it's created that branch. So you can see already in this plugin, we're getting the push events from git pub sub, which is something that Apache has implemented, so that the Apache Foundation doesn't have to go and configure all sorts of other things. Instead, people can just consume by consuming these pub sub events. And if you want, you can git pub sub git pub sub. You can find out more about that here. So that's the events that we have for that. Now, if we go back up here, we can go again. We can watch the multi-branch events. Let's go watch something else. So I'm going to go git branch minus or git checkout minus b temp test git push origin temp test. And what we should see happen again is there you can see we've got that temp test, and if we wander back up here, that's going to have created a branch for it, and there's temp test. And let's go back here and push origin, get rid of temp test. And let's go back to the multi-branch pipeline events. And you can see removed event processed. And so when we wander back here, temp test is now strike true, and that's just the way that multi-branch works. It's only when you do an indexing that it will actually be able to delete that branch automatically, but we can manually delete it here just to tidy things up. So that's kind of that aspect. Now, what we want is we want if there's a repository created, we want to get that in the organization folder events. All right. So how do we trigger that? Well, this is actually relatively easy. So we go to this git pub sub thing, hide all the stuff we don't care. So this has, so what we have in here is we have this, all that sort of stuff. So what we basically have is this push, which is a head event. And that's basically where we hit things. So what happens is every time we get a push, we have this SCM head event. And there were two choices that we could have made in how to match events with event listeners. So we could have gone down the route of every SCM source and SCM navigator knows all the types of events that are important to it. And then if you add a new source of events, it would then have to know about that particular event type. Now, given that there are many more ways of sending events into Jenkins, the anticipation is that there will be more events producers and they may come along after the fact than there would be event consumers. And so, for example, you might want to take events from GitHub and pass them over to Git. You may want to take events from some system that you invented yourself and pass them on to Git. It wouldn't be responsible to have the Git plugin have to know about everyone's different SCM event systems. So instead what we do is we say that the event knows what SCM sources, what SCM navigators are relevant to it. So how this works is there are a number of different match methods. So I can go to head event and we can see that there is match on a navigator. There is also things like description for, but that's neither here. Is match on an SCM source. Now, is match on an SCM source has a default implementation, which is basically to say if there are no heads for this source, then it's not a match. The real work for SCM sources is this heads method, where it's basically saying, okay, from the event, for this source, what heads would have been discovered. And then there's this last one, which is match for SCM. So if we go back to git pub sub poll, we have for is match for SCM. So if the SCM is git SCM and we haven't disabled notify and we haven't got ignore notify commit, if one of the repositories loosely matches the remote URI, then we're solid. And that's what we want for that. So this is match here allows git pub sub to trigger regular Git jobs and removes the need for polling, or reduces, because you'll still want polling periodically. Now the next one we have is we have heads git SCM source. Now we've got some other little weird bits that we probably could tidy up, but again we go if git status loosely matches this remote URI with the remote URI, then we're solid, everything's hunky-dory. This is the one that we have for SCM Navigator, and this guy's currently returning false. So all we really need to do is find out if it is a match for the one we're after. So what we want is we want to say, okay, so if it's the same server, then we're solid. So let's go and grab some events. So let's go logger log level info server equals, and let's go plus payload get server. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say, instead for this guy, we know roughly what we want. We want to say, okay, well, we're only interested if the navigator is instance of ASF, SCM Navigator, that's fine. And let's go with the simple thing, payload, get server equals navigator.getServer. Now, this is not correct because as text. There we go. And let's flip the equals. You know what? Let's be even more safer. Let's use objects equals. Right. I'm going to if else. If instance of this guy. Right. Now, this isn't the comparison we want, because if you look here, we're adding in things like HTTPS, and we're adding in, well, actually, we probably don't even need to go that far. So if we go that far, let's see, what did we say were our server URLs? So yeah, right. So let's go, this much should be enough. So get payload, right. Let's go with this guy, and let's take this one up here and put it in here. Server plus, there we go. So this gives us our server, and then we're just basically saying if this guy is that, let's we're small enough now, and we can actually just go server equals. That's nicer. Let's go that. There we go. That looks nicer. So that's that. So in principle, this should work. I'm just logging it just for purposes of double checking. Let's go back here and relaunch. Now, while we're at that, let's find a repository that doesn't exist. So we know which ones exist. We need to find one that so we need to find one that doesn't actually exist in the repository that we have so far. And we create a branch, and then hopefully, if all goes well, we'll actually see that branch come pulling in and getting the multi-branch project created and victory. Of course, things never go to plan. So the ones we have are Maven, Maven Resolver, Maven Surefire. So Maven SCM, maybe? Maven SCM, that looks like a good one to go with. So git clone Maven SCM git. There we go. Now, there's pub sub request. So let's double check. We know SCM. Let's go over here to organization folder events. And cd maven cm git checkout temp test touch Jenkins file BI Jenkins file git add Jenkins file git push origin temp test. Now, this is the moment of truth. Either this works or it doesn't. So hopefully, we're going to get rid of this guy again. In a sec. Let's watch here. So there you can see the event came in. Push created event. Checking all those ignored. How did we do? Where's Maven SCM? Checking branch temp test, Jenkins file found. And there we go, Maven SCM and temp test. So that actually wasn't too bad. Let's get rid of this guy. Now, this may not work. Oh, there we go. It's already gone and marked that as disabled. So we actually even have all the requisite events coming in. So we proposed this guy and somehow we managed to get rid of it. How on earth did that happen? Magic. So if this guy's... okay. That guy should be deletable, but it'll get cleaned up eventually. Probably if we scan the organization folder. Yeah, we've got days to keep 0. Go back here. And we'll remove Maven SCM as it's number 1 in the list for removal. And there it is, gone. Woohoo!